In the middle of the night, on the edge of a wide bend in a forested highway where teenagers and immature adults alike enjoy chasing speed, a dark police car sat waiting. Inside the car, periodically glancing up from her phone to watch for headlights and eating a crisp gas station taquito, sat Officer Marley McGowan, badge number 627. Beside her in the passenger seat, Officer Adam Stoltz, badge number 668, had his arms across his chest like a mummy. They rose with the steady crescendo of his breath and fell as the air somewhat noisily exited his lungs. The static hiss of the radio, a rare sound that night, startled them both to attention.
27,
dispatch called. Marley looked over to make sure Adam was awake before responding. Go ahead.
27, we just took a theft report of a blue Ford Mustang. The caller suspects his teenage son Nathan Upshaw, age 17, unknown where he might be. Just keep an eye out.
Copy, Marley replied. We're by the highway right now. We can cruise up and down, see if we spot him. Dispatch replied.
Copy that. The dad just confirmed his son turned off his cell phone tracking.
Nice, Adam said as Marley put the car in drive. Gravel crunched beneath them as she turned them onto the road. What's nice? Asked Marley. Adam said, it just makes my old soul happy when kids still get up to shenanigans in this day and age with all the tracking and stuff. You're glad this kid stole his dad's Mustang? The double yellow line on the road reflecting back seemed brighter than the sun to Adam's sleepy eyes. He squinted and put a hand up to block the light. I'm not saying I condone it, but I bet in 10 years from now this kid's gonna remember what he got up to tonight while he's sitting at some boring job, and he's gonna smile to himself, and just for one fleeting second, the world's gonna feel exciting again. Marley said, Oh yeah? And what would make you smile like that on such a thrilling night as this? She looked over and saw Adam actually wearing a big, stupid grin. He said, I never stole a car, but I did steal my own dirt bike plenty of times. I'd roll it out of my parents' garage when I was, 14, 15, somewhere in there. I'd push it all the way down the street to a T intersection with the highway, then I'd start it up and zip off to meet my friends on some gravel road somewhere. See, that just sounds like harmless fun to me, said Marley. Sure, until Jim Gretzky snapped his leg in half and we had to call his mom to tell her. The radio overrode Marley's response.
634, could you go to 549 Fillmore Avenue? We just took a call from a mother who says her teenage daughter is missing.
Uh-oh, said Adam cheekily, talking over their fellow officer's response. He waited his turn, then spoke into the radio himself. Dispatch, is there any chance these missing teens are connected?
68, we're calling the owner of the Mustang to see if they might know each other.
Copy that, Adam answered, his grin audible over the airwaves. To Marley, he said, Hey, weird question. What happens if we accidentally catch teenagers doing you-know-what on our body cams? Marley shot him an extraordinarily motherly look and opened her mouth to reprimand him, but then her eyes softened and she shut her mouth. Leaning back against her seat, she said, That's actually a great question. Adam smacked the side of his own head and said, Right? Because unless they wrote some kind of exception into the laws about, Whoa, look up there, Marley interrupted, pointing over the dashboard at something ahead. They were approaching the turnoff for the county fairgrounds, where there happened to be a traveling carnival in the process of setting up for a weekend stay. Of course, being the middle of the night, most of the lights were off and everyone was sleeping in their trucks and trailers or the motel up the road. However, Marley spotted a single car parked right at the fairgrounds gate. A blue Mustang Shelby GT500. Adam said, Well, that was easy. Marley stopped with her headlights shining on the Mustang's rear and read the license plate to dispatch, confirming a match to their stolen vehicle.
27, we also heard back from the father that the missing girl is a close friend of his son. Her name is Nona Kistler.
Marley said, Copy. Adam said, A close friend for sure. Hey, could you have resisted a guy in a Shelby when you were in high school? Marley ignored him, saying, Come on, let's check it out. Might want to cover up your lens until we know everybody's decent, though. with a fleeting grin to show that, despite her hardened, mature outer coating, she still saw the humor in the situation. They approached either side of the Mustang from behind, shining their flashlights through the windows. From behind, there didn't appear to be anyone inside, not even in the back seat. They confirmed this when they reached the windows. Marley said, "I count 4 cups. See that? This might be a double date." Adam peered in at the 4 McDonald's cups, 2 in the cup holders between the front seats and 2 leaned precariously against the backs of the rear seats. Right on cue, dispatch called,
27 and 68, we have more info on the missing kids. The original caller, he says he's checking with his son's friend's parents, and so far it does sound like his girlfriend is also missing. Her name is Miranda Kwong. He's also checking on a male named Emilio Valenzuela, who is dating Nona Kistler.
"Copy that," answered Adam. Abandoning the Mustang, he approached the fairground gate. It was just a simple farm gate any kid could climb over or slide beneath. The padlock on the gate was really just there to keep people from driving in and turning the main thoroughfare into a drag strip. He flashed his light around the partially constructed carnival, but saw no sign of any lovebirds. He didn't hear anyone either. But the fairgrounds were big, and the carnival supplied many places to hide. "Dispatch from 68, he called. "Show me in 27 out at the fairgrounds. We'll let you know what we find." The carnival spread over the bulk of the fairgrounds. It was a lot of ground to cover, so their sergeant dispatched some backup to help them search. Unfortunately, their backup still needed to clear their previous call before they would be on their way. The entrance funneled them between rows of game booths. Those rickety booths always look a little dubious in the daylight, but at night, under nothing but a bit of moonlight and the stray haze from the nearest floodlight, they looked downright decrepit. They passed a ring toss with enormous stuffed clowns hanging from the canopy. They twisted and turned in the breeze. Adam involuntarily pictured a cluster of sad clowns standing under a large tree, all of them pulling endless streams of ribbons out of their throats with which to hang themselves. This thought had nothing to do with the matter at hand. It was just one of those intrusive imaginings that Adam could not justify yet could not prevent either. He acknowledged the disturbed scene, then banished it from his mind. He thought, "That's what they call gallows humor, Stoltz. It's what gets you through creepy carnivals in the dead of night." He found a standing sign with a map of the carnival and waved Marley over. "Looks like we're next to the main thoroughfare. See here? Looks like there's 2 big tents and the rest is all rides and stuff." "What's an oddities museum?" asked Marley, pointing to the nearest of the tents, the one beside the carousel. Adam shrugged. "Hope we don't have to find out." "Ah, thanks. Now you know we're going to end up in there," Marley groaned. "Something tells me if you're that suspicious, you probably shouldn't go into something called an oddities museum anyway," said Adam. They walked further into the grounds, entering the main thoroughfare where the first couple of rides were partially assembled. "Why shouldn't I?" Marley obstinately demanded. "Oh, come on," teased Adam. "Everybody knows it's all just antique junk, but these places always claim to have all these ancient cursed objects or shrunken heads or whatever. If you believe in jinxes, I don't know if stuff like that can be good for your head." "I believe in jinxes because I've watched them come true about 100 times, Marley fired back. "If I ever see some kind of curse come true, I'll believe in those too. Something tells me I don't have to worry. Anyway, we should probably figure out where these kids are." She yelled, "Police, come out! We want to make sure everybody stays safe. Please make yourselves known now." Adam then shouted each of the kids' names across the grounds. It felt like his voice evaporated right in front of his face. He heard no echo whatsoever. His voice sounded out of place and like a form of violence against the quiet stillness of the fairground. He chalked this up to nerves and pretended not to feel anything out of the ordinary. With a startling clunk and a mechanical whir, the carousel behind the oddities tent shot colorful lights and cheerful music in all directions. Red, blue, green, and orange hues painted the rides, the tents. Then, slowly at first, but gaining momentum, the colors began to spin. Marley and Adam rushed across the thoroughfare. Due to large trailers and pieces of equipment scattered around, they found it impossible to gain a clear view of the carousel until it was almost directly in front of them. As the carousel turned, its bright, childish music changed roughly every 3 seconds, skipping to the beginning of the next song before skipping again. "Malfunction?" asked Adam. Marley suddenly screamed his name. Adam jumped, and Marley's hands brought out her gun. Adam instinctively drew his too, but when he observed who he was pointing it at, he felt like a fool. The girl on the carousel was obviously no threat. She was quite dead. Marley uttered something between a gasp and a moan. Her gun slowly lowered. The dead girl was seated on a black horse and sliding up and down against its brass pole. Her face was a bloody pulp, swollen badly. Her scarf secured her to the pole with a tight knot so that as the horse pushed her body upward, it bent and crushed her neck. When the poor girl was directly in front of them, the officers could hear her body squelching blood out through her mouth. It ran down her legs onto the horse and rotating floor beneath her. Adam vomited while Marley radioed the sergeant that they'd located a body. Adam was still bent over when he heard Marley amend her initial call. Sarge, make that 2 bodies. We've got 2 dead on the carousel." The second teen to come bobbing around the track was a male, just about 17. His face also looked like it had exploded from the inside, and blood from his mouth had soaked everything below it. And then came another. And another. The 4 runaway teenagers all perished in the same way, and all had been secured to a horse to be paraded around the carousel. An acute thought brought Adam back from the brink of passing out. He sputtered it aloud for Marley's sake. "Whoever turned this thing on." He didn't need to finish. Marley made a dash to a bundle of barricades ready to be set up next to the carousel and hid behind them, angling for a view of the ride's control booth. She found it and reported to Adam that it was empty when he caught up to her. Adam raised a hand to silence her. His eyes shot to the oddities tent. He kept his quieting hand up for a few seconds, then cautiously lowered it and wrapped its fingers around the pistol in his other hand, securing a good shooting grip. "What is it?" Marley whispered. "A noise in that tent," Adam replied. Marley listened too, and while it was faint and indistinct, she too picked out a tapping sound coming from the direction of the Oddities Museum. His voice devoid of humor, Adam said, "Guess you were right. I jinxed us." Grinning wryly, Marley said, "Told ya." Backup was on the way, but Adam and Marley agreed they couldn't wait if the suspect was inside the Oddities Museum destroying evidence, plotting an escape, or preparing some type of action against them. The carousel finally started playing one of its bright songs normally and quit skipping between them. Then the music pitched down and slowed before going silent. The music died at the same time as the colorful lights, and a moment later, the carousel came to a screeching, grinding halt. The first dead girl they saw, later to be confirmed as Miranda Kwong, slipped down from her horse, but her scarf kept her tied to its pole, so when she flopped to the side, she remained somewhat upright, bent into an awful C shape. They didn't waste any more time going to the entrance of the Oddities tent. A tall wooden arch had been constructed in front of the tent's opening, and across the arch were carved the words, "Ollie's Oddities and Haunted Objects Museum." "What did I tell ya?" asked Adam. "Cursed objects and shrunken heads." Marley bitterly replied, Yeah, let's just get in there." The Oddities Museum was, Adam guessed, intentionally disorienting, and even more so with only the light from his and Marley's underbarrel flashlights to show them where they were going. Inside the tent, the crew had constructed a wide tunnel out of metal framing and black tarps. Metal barricades on either side meant to keep visitors from touching any of the objects, forced Adam and Marley to move through the exhibits single file. Their underbarrel flashlights provided the only illumination. The first section only consisted of slightly off-putting taxidermied exotic animals and skeletons of sea creatures mixed and matched to make disturbing beasts. At one time in history, visitors would have left such a display with their entire view of the world shattered. Now, people were more savvy and simply enjoyed the transient pleasure of seeing the bizarre specimens, and generally understood they were for entertainment only. The whole section smelled like fermentation and formaldehyde. And blood. Blood soaked the dirt floor Adam and Marley walked upon. They did their best to avoid stepping in it so as not to disturb the crime scene, but the narrow path made it necessary for their boots to make an occasional impression in the iron-scented mud. Adam noted a single handprint pointed toward the exit. He observed scuff marks in the dirt around the blood and said, "It looks like one of them struggled here, maybe tried to escape." The blood dotted the path ahead, too. Adam and Marley followed it, without pausing too long in any of the next few sections, only stopping long enough to make sure no one was hiding before pressing on. They came to an impression in the dirt where it appeared another one of the fleeing teens had fallen. Before getting up, they too had left a smear of blood. "Oh boy, here we go," Marley muttered, pointing her light at a sign dangling from the metal frame above their heads. It read, "Haunted Objects." "Where are you with ghosts and spirits?" Adam asked, not quite sure if he meant this question seriously or just to fill the eerie silence. "Come on, really?" Marley said as she walked under the sign. "You can call me superstitious, but I'm still a rational adult. Why, are you about to tell me you're scared to go in here?" Adam also walked under the sign, saying, "Terrified, but not of ghosts." Marley hardened herself against the feeling of superstitious dread which had begun to creep up on her. Despite what she said about her belief in the paranormal, she felt an undeniable atmospheric suggestion that they were absolutely not welcome. After entering the first section of Haunted Objects, Marley whimpered and slipped back behind Adam. What? Adam raised his gun and waved it across the displays on either side of the path. Both sides, from top to bottom, were lined with long shelves packed with porcelain dolls. Some looked like infants, others like young girls and boys. Some wore old prairie clothes or ball gowns. Some were left bare. Some had eyes painted on, while others were glass marbles. But each and every one of the lifeless eyes was trained on the two police officers. Every doll's head was turned just slightly to face them as they moved in. What the hell? What the hell? Marley panted behind Adam. She whispered, I might not believe in ghosts, but creepy dolls are my nightmare fuel. Adam pushed forward slowly. He told himself 100 dolls staring at you would feel creepy whether they were supposedly haunted or not. He reminded himself of what he had just told Marley seconds ago, that he wasn't scared of ghosts, and by that he meant anything paranormal. He whispered, Don't worry, I'm sure Ollie or whoever just turned all the heads like that too. He was going to say, to scare visitors, but as he continued pushing forward between the shelves of dolls, he noticed their heads turning to follow him. Each doll remained locked on the officers with their soulless stares. Marley made a sound that might have been words all colliding on their way out of her. She shoved past Adam and sprinted out of the doll room. Adam chased after her. When they entered the next section, Marley holstered her gun and leaned against a barricade. She white-knuckle gripped the top rail and bent over like she might puke, but only hyperventilated instead. Adam wished for some cold water to give her, but the best he could do was rub her back a little, which felt very impersonal over her bulletproof vest. Let's keep going, Adam encouraged. Marley nodded uncertainly and spat on the ground. Sorry, she said. Those dolls just really got to me. Just remember, they probably rig all this stuff to be scary, Adam said, although he didn't know how they could make all of those dolls move in unison like that. The new section they stood in was full of a seemingly random assortment of objects, mostly antique children's toys, thankfully no dolls. Adam was reassured of the objects' false claims to haunting by the fact that about half of them had been copied from popular horror movies. It seemed to him an uncreative collector had curated this particular set. He would have led Marley straight through without stopping, but he paused when he thought he heard a clacking sound coming from one of the shelves after they passed by it. "Did you hear that?" Marley asked, confirming the noise wasn't just in Adam's head. She shone her light along the shelf, lighting up a murky snow globe, a rolling chatterphone, one of those monkeys with the symbols, an abacus. Wait, what?" she said, pausing with her light focused on the abacus. It was standing vertically, so gravity should have held all of its beads down, yet a few floated defiantly against the top. "What are we looking at?" Adam asked impatiently. He wanted to be gone. Marley explained, "That abacus, hang on. Holy, do you know how to read one of those?" Her voice had lost its foundation. The words quivered out of her. "Never learned," replied Adam. His mouth went dry. Whatever his partner saw on that abacus seemed to have scared her as much as the dolls had. Even quieter than before, Marley said, "Right now, it's showing the number 668. Almost unable to swallow, Adam, badge number 668, replied, "That's just a coincidence. I bet all those beads are glued to—" He was interrupted when, still exposed by the truth of their underbarrel flashlights, the beads on the abacus rearranged themselves. All of the upper beads shot to the top, and all of the lower beads fell to the bottom, making the very same clacking noise which delayed the officers in the first place. Before either could react, the beads arranged themselves again, all moving instantly into formation. "Go!" Marley screamed, shoving past Adam. This time she wasn't trying to push past him but was pushing him onward. She reacted not out of raw fear, but rather absolute certainty of danger. Running right behind him, she explained, "It just changed to 627. Entering the next section, Adam stumbled over a short stack of boxes. The smell of sweat and death saturated the air, and nearly every square foot of dirt floor was soaked with bright red blood. Adam put his mouth and nose in the crook of his elbow, looking sideways down the sight of his pistol. Waiting barricades rested against the tent wall. The tarps, yet to be draped over the tunnel frame, lay in a pile. More stacks of boxes towered all around the deconstructed space. A chest, made of ebony wood so dark it looked blackened by fire, sat conspicuously against the tent wall, invisible unless one of the officers shone their light upon it. A crusty lock hung from the chest's heavy latch, broken, and a rectangular black cushion lay beside it, glistening with blood. "If anyone's in here, come out with your hands up," Marley commanded. Her mouth muffled like Adam's, she said, "God, it smells like week old corpse rot in here." "Yep, let's clear it fast before I hurl all over the crime scene," Adam replied. It didn't take them long to scan the open section. Since the last room had not been constructed yet, they could also see the exterior of the sections they had already passed through, making it unlikely anyone could still be hiding outside of the constructed tunnel. Across the open space, the exit flap subtly waved as a gentle breeze outside pulled at it. Adam and Marley assumed whoever made the noise they heard minutes ago probably escaped before they even got close to catching them. "Let's get outside and call it in," said Marley. But no sooner had she spoken than a small but bright light on the ground ahead drew both of their attention. The light came from the small rectangular screen of a camcorder they'd both failed to notice before. Marley actually didn't think it was possible it could have been there when she first scanned the room without her seeing it. It wasn't near any other objects which might have hidden it or cast a shadow to hide it. Tinny voices spoke out of the device's speaker. Raucous, exuberant teenage voices. Marley warily approached it. "How did it just turn itself on?" Adam asked, but Marley shushed him. She squatted in front of the camcorder, being careful not to kneel in the blood, and watched the scene playing back. It showed 3 of the runaway teenagers standing in the very same place where she and Adam now stood.
"Aw, it's not done yet,"
whines Nona Kistler.
"Damn, it seemed like they had this place finished,"
says Emilio Valenzuela. The camera swings around to Miranda Kwong displaying a pouty face. She says,
"Is this really what you dragged us all out here for, Nathan?"
Behind the camera, Nathan Upshaw's voice says,
"Hey, it's not like I knew they wouldn't be done setting it up yet. So how are we gonna find this thing?"
Emilio asks off camera. The picture is still trained on Miranda when she says,
"If it's even here at all."
Nathan says,
"Oh, come on, have a little faith, child. It's here."
The screen went black as the clip ended. Less than a second later, the next clip started playing on its own. The camera moves slowly and jerkily toward the ebony chest at the back of the tent. Off-screen, Nona can be heard saying,
"Don't you dare go with him, Emilio. I'll kill you. Relax, it's just a legend."
Emilio replies with a laugh. His voice sounds shaky, nervous, like he doesn't necessarily believe what he's saying. Both officers' radios crackled with the sergeant's voice.
6827, we're on site now. Where are you at?
So Marley could watch the video uninterrupted. Adam replied, "Big tent just past the thoroughfare. Suspect is possibly still in the area. We just found the victim's video camera."
Copy that. Leave it there so we can bag it later.
"Too late," muttered Marley, picking up the camera in order to see the screen better. She said, "Before I go back out there in the open, I want to know what happened to these kids." On screen, Nathan moved the camera closer to the chest. Miranda's voice off-screen says,
"Wait, Nathan."
The camera turns abruptly, showing the edge of Miranda's shoulder now. She says,
"This doesn't feel right. Like, something about this place? I'm just not having fun anymore."
Nathan speaks endearingly.
"Hey, it's not real, okay? Don't freak out. Think of the clout actually getting this thing on camera will get us." "Yeah, get you."
Miranda fires back.
"Emilio and Nona just saw this as a way to sneak out, and I'm not into this stuff. At all. I just hope you aren't dragging us into something. Miranda, are you hearing yourself? You sound like you actually believe in ghosts."
Nathan says, laughing.
"So what if I do?"
Miranda demands.
"I'm not okay with this anymore. Let's just, go find somewhere to hang out or whatever."
Nathan says,
"We will, just... I already told people I was going to get this clip."
The camera jerks, showing Miranda's furious face as she shoves Nathan back. Emilio and Nona can be heard nervously laughing in the background. Miranda gets close to Nathan again. Her shoulder is pressed against the camera's microphone, but she can just barely be heard snarling.
"I can't believe you. Just hurry up. I'm out." "Miranda!"
Nathan calls after her, but she is already walking back into the tunnel. Nathan swears and tells the others he's going to hurry up and get his footage so that he can go after her. He then turns the camera back to the weathered chest and kneels beside it.
"Okay, everybody,"
he says, apparently speaking to the online audience he intends to share this moment with.
"Somebody from the last town this carnival stopped in posted that they're hiding a real haunted object here. Apparently, whoever was in charge of their collection bought it somewhere along the road and was going to put it on display, but when he opened the chest to take it out, he died. The guy who posted about it claimed to be an EMT, and he says the guy's, innards exploded. His lungs blew up inside him. So, anyway, I gotta hurry. But this EMT wrote about how he looked the object up, and it's this sort of legendary thing, right? I guess some rich lady, or a royal or whatever, had it made, and she was super full of herself. She wouldn't meet with people she thought were less than her because she didn't want to breathe the same air as them. Messed up, right? So the story is, before she died, she cursed this thing or something so that if anybody breathed on it, she'd kill them for it. It disappeared more than 100 years ago, but if this EMT is telling the truth, it's back, and I'm sitting right in front of it, right now." So,
He breathes a long, forceful exhale.
let's see it.
A pair of bolt cutters creep into the lower frame. Nathan tries to use them while still holding the camera, but soon calls Emilio over to help him. Still, they can't cut through the ancient lock, so he gives the camera to Nona, and both of the boys apply all of their strength to the bolt cutter's handles. They collide together as the blades cut through, destroying a lock older than the forgotten members of their lineages. Nathan takes the camera back.
Okay, everybody, hold your breath.
He says, as he slowly lifts the lid. Inside the chest, he finds a black cushion perfectly fit to the chest's dimensions. He worms his fingers under it and lifts. Marley let out a small gasp. Adam felt his stomach sink, though he did not completely understand why. The object beneath the cushion was a deceptively simple bust of a stunning woman. However, the expression permanently etched on her visage denied her any beauty. Her lips were pinched in an eternal scowl, and her eyes, as piercing and inescapable as real eyes, were narrowed in accusation. The bust was approximately the same size as a woman's head, adding to its lifelike impression. The startling first sight of the bust causes Nathan to stumble back, uttering an involuntary gasp as he falls. The camera falls on its side, showing only half of the chest as a black shape rises from it, like a vampire emerging from its sarcophagus.
No, we're sorry,
Nona screams. The boys can also be heard shouting incoherently to one another, but one of their screams is cut short. There's a terrible popping, like someone bursting a balloon beneath a pillow. Then the sound of agonized choking. The sound occurs again before Emilio's head falls in front of the camera, turned away from the lens. He jerks and spasms, then twists his head to face the camera. The blood he is suffocating on bubbles out of his mouth. Nathan grabs the camera and runs into the dark tunnel Miranda disappeared into a moment before. The camera goes dark. The memory card didn't contain any more clips, but it didn't take much imagination for Adam and Marley to piece together what happened after the camera went dark, because they had found Nathan and Miranda's blood spilled on the ground when they first entered the Oddities Museum. Adam said, "Come on, let's get out of here." "It's still free," Marley muttered beside him. The camera fell from her hand. She turned to meet his eyes. "The carousel. How did it turn on by itself? Adam, this thing drew us in. It messed with the dolls and the abacus, and just now it turned on the camera. It wanted us to see this. Why?" Adam was speechless, partially because the longer he stood in the room with that ebony chest, the stronger a foreign impulse urged him to open it, to gaze upon the terrifying object inside for himself. A radio call brought him back to his senses.
6827, did you say you found bodies on the carousel?
Asked their sergeant. Marley replied, "This is 27. Yes, want to link up there?" The sergeant replied,
We're here now. There's nothing here. Everything looks fine.
To Adam, Marley said, "Let's go." They left through the rear flap, leaving the camcorder behind as evidence. They hurried to the carousel where they met up with the sergeant and another officer, both of whom watched them approach with genuine apprehension on their faces. "You two okay?" the sergeant asked earnestly. Adam nodded. Marley refused to respond until she got a good look at the carousel. It was empty and spotlessly clean. "Sarge, I promise," she started to say, but suddenly choked up, overwhelmed by confusion and terror. She no longer felt she had any understanding of the force assailing them. "The camera," Adam exclaimed. "It won't show the kids on the carousel, but Sarge, you gotta see the footage. It shows the kids. We saw them die." Adam attempted to console Marley as they returned to the oddities tent with backup. He reminded her that he had also seen the dead kids on the carousel, seen their blood running down the horses. He told her if they had both seen it, surely it must have been real. This time, while leading the others, they entered the oddities tent through the rear to avoid going through the whole thing again. They entered the open area, and all four shone their lights around it. There were the tarps piled near the waiting cluster of unused barricades, and there, against the far wall of the tent, sat the old ebony chest. Gone was all the blood, the camcorder, the bolt cutters. The old chest's lock clung to its latch, whole and unbroken. The sergeant ordered Adam and Marley to go with the EMTs waiting outside the fairgrounds to be evaluated at the hospital. He suspected they may have come into contact with a gas leak or poison of some kind. He led a search of the fairgrounds but discovered no one else, dead or alive. Nathan Upshaw, Miranda Kwong, Emilio Valenzuela, and Nona Kessler are still listed as missing persons to this very day. Adam Stoltz and Marley McGowan both passed their medical and physical examinations without issue. No chemicals had addled their senses that night, at least none currently possible to test for. Both seemed entirely lucid and coherent. They were placed on paid leave for 2 weeks, and when they came back, Marley seemed to adjust well. She told Adam she didn't want to talk about that night and what they did or didn't see, and seemed to accept that it could potentially remain a mystery for the rest of her life. Adam pretended to carry on unburdened by that night as well, but he knew he was pretending and guessed Marley was also, especially after they received the news that their body cams had both stopped recording the minute they set foot in the fairgrounds. Now, whenever Adam reflects on that night, he realizes there is one thing he could have done to know beyond a doubt whether or not he actually experienced what he so vividly remembers. One quick glance inside that chest could have proved it, he thinks. But if that bust was inside, glowering up at him between its cushions, would that have been enough? Or would he have felt the urge to gently blow on it, just to see what would happen? The carnival packed up without opening and left after the investigation was through with it. Adam checked. They left nothing behind. When he tracked the carnival down to the next town it visited, he snuck into the back of the oddities tent and searched inside and out of the constructed museum, but the ebony chest was nowhere to be found. When he asked about it, citing an anonymous online story written by a man claiming to be an EMT, he was told vaguely that the Oddities Museum was always changing. Some items stuck around for a long time, others were sold off to make room for new, more interesting or disturbing ones. The person he spoke to said that the chest he was looking for, if it wasn't on display, had likely been pawned or sold off at one of the towns along their route. Adam tracked down a few more workers and asked if they remembered unloading a big ebony chest in any town along the way, but no one would admit to its existence. Sometime later, even Marley began to believe she had imagined everything that happened that night, and when she finally started talking to Adam about it, it was to encourage him to do the same. But he refused. Without any footage, and even the online story from the EMT disappearing without a trace, Adam had only his memory as proof that the sinister chest had ever existed. He resolved to do the only thing he could and carry that proof to the grave. You made it out. Congratulations. If you enjoyed the story, please rate, like, review, or subscribe. For ad-free episodes and bonus Into the Woods episodes, become a patron with the link in the description. You can also support the show by buying merch. That link is also in the description below. To stay up to date, follow me on Instagram at The Warning Woods, and if you feel ready, meet me here next week for another journey into the Warning Woods. Thank you for listening.